Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another video for Monster Hunter Stories 2, and today I want to talk briefly about the weapons, how they work and how to use them effectively in combat. For the most part, weapons and combat in general in stories is relatively simple and self-explanatory, but some of the weapon mechanics are told to you in passing, so you'd be forgiven for missing a few things. So in this video, we'll quickly go over everything you need to know. So if you do enjoy this and you do find it helpful, then a like would be super appreciated, and also let me know which weapons you guys are enjoying using the most so far. Now to begin with, weapons fall within one of three different categories: slash, blunt, and pierce. And in Monster Hunter Stories 2, there are 6 different weapon types, with 2 weapons falling into each of those 3 categories. Sword and Shield and Greatsword are the slash type, Hammer and Hunting Horn are the blunt type, and Bow and Gun Lance are the pierce type. You can have up to 3 weapons equipped at one time, so it's wise to take one from each category. Then in combat, you can press X to bring up the weapon swap menu, or you can go from skills, swap weapon, and do it that way. Since different monsters are weaker to different attack types, having one of each weapon covers all your bases and gives you the best chance in combat. Keep in mind that whilst you're fighting, taking a look at the icons that appear above the monster will indicate which type is most effective or which ones are least effective. In combat, as you play, you'll accrue kinship charge, and when you go to use your weapon skills, you can see that some skills have higher meter requirements than others. However, it's also important to note, depending on your weapon type, some skills also have additional requirements, but these are specific to each weapon. So let's go over those now. Starting off with a Sword and Shield, a slash type weapon, this is the easiest weapon to master since you don't have any additional meters to worry about. Sword and Shield skills draw from the kinship gauge, so in combat, simply attack normally until you have sufficient meter, and then use the skill with the corresponding attack type to do more damage. As you get higher level and get better equipment, you will have access to more moves, but for now, let's keep it simple. The Sword and Shield also offers some basic defensive options too, with some skills allowing for blocks or parries, but in general combat, it's pretty much that. Attack, use meter, use your skills. However, if we jump over to the Greatsword, things are similar, but a little different. The Greatsword has a charge meter, as you can see here, with 2 blocks. Much like with Sword and Shield, to use any skill, you first need to build kinship meter, but following that, in order to gain access to your more powerful moves, you have to perform charge attacks. Doing so will fill this meter. Performing the basic charge move here will add 1 block. Following this, on your next turn, you either have access to the next charge move, which will fill the second block. Notice how the first move is grayed out now. This is something you have to perform in sequence. However, at this point, you can also consume the first block to use the charged move. Notice the difference in the name. Charge moves will charge, meanwhile charged moves will consume. It's also important to note, if the charged move requires 1 block, it must be performed when you have just 1 block. If you go on to build 2 charge blocks, you will have to use the 2 block move. Seems a little odd, but that's how the meter works in this game, so use charge attacks to fill the meter, then consume the blocks and perform the powerful charged attacks. Moving on from there to blunt weapons, firstly Hammer. Similar behaviour to the Greatsword in that it has a charge meter, only this one has 3 blocks. Winning a head-to-head will see the charge gauge fill up. Performing a double attack, this will also fill up the gauge, and winning a clash will also add a charge. And then looking at your skills, you can see that again they have a charge requirement. Much like the Greatsword, to use the skill you have to match the requirement. In other words, if you have 3 charge blocks, you can't use the 2 charge block move, you have to use the 3 charge move, but charge up to the required level, and you can then use the corresponding skill. Simple. Of course, being a blunt weapon, hammers are naturally good at breaking parts, so use that to your advantage, or just pay attention to the on-screen prompt again to determine what is best to use. Moving on from there to blunt weapon number 2, the Hunting Horn. This one is also pretty simple to use since you have no additional gauges or meters to worry about. Much like you'd expect, the Hunting Horn also has the added benefit of being able to buff and support your team. Its attacks are simple, and within your skill menu you have access to your list of available songs. Some horns can even heal, which is mighty handy in a pinch. But similar to the Sword and Shield, the only meter you have to worry about here is the kinship gauge, since that is what the skills require. Then following on from there, let's talk about the last category, pierce type weapons. First up, the bow. This one has a couple of interesting properties. Again, much like you would expect from traditional Monster Hunter, the bow can use a variety of different coatings, but you'll see all of these as skills in stories. In other words, some bows might have power shots, some bows might have sleep shots. Check the menu for details. The bow can fire like normal. It then has a 0 cost charge move, which does consume a turn, but this is your meter you build in order to unlock your more powerful moves. Once charged, you have access to the bow specific shots, either rapid, pierce or spread. Again, this is bow dependent, so check the menu when crafting. It is worth noting, following a charged bow shot, there is a chance that at the end of the turn you will also perform a power shot, which is essentially like 2 shots in 1, kind of making up for the fact that you had to waste a turn charging. Rapid fire shots are high power single shots, spread shots will hit all opponents, and piercing shots are good for selected monster parts. Outside of that, your coating style skills can be used without charging, just using kinship gauge, but it's worth noting that charging will increase their potency and chance to proc. Then finally we have the gun lance, the boomstick, and my personal favourite pierce weapon. This has a shell meter, and you accrue shells a number of different ways. By default, you get a shell at the end of each turn, but winning a head-to-head or a clash, and also landing a critical hit, will also give you shells. The number of shells will determine which skills you have access to, just like the other weapons. Additionally, if you win a head-to-head using a skill, it'll give you a big boost to your kinship gauge. Once your kinship gauge is full and completely maxed out, instead of mounting your monster, you can also opt to use Wyvern Fire, which is incredibly powerful and will consume the entire kinship gauge, but won't use your shells. Your other skills, however, they cost 0 kinship gauge, but they do require shells. And also, unlike the greatsword or the hammer, going beyond the threshold does not lock out previous skills. In other words, if you have all 8 shells charged, you can still use a 2 shell or a 4 shell skill. So it's pretty flexible in that regard. It's also got a lot of explosive power and is a ton of fun to use. But that, my friends, is pretty much it. That was just a simple, quick overview of the weapons in Stories 2. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and of course, keep it locked for more Stories 2 content. If you want to catch more from us at Arekkz Gaming, don't forget you can catch the guys TwoSixNine and Paradise Central streaming over on Twitch weekdays, playing a variety of games. If you guys want to jump in, tune in, watch, and even join in, then make sure you check them out. The links to those are in the description box down below, and of course you can join the Discord to get involved in all of the discussions.